Hey everyone, so I've been ruminating quite a bit while I've been socially distancing myself about what's wrong with the world and how can we fix it. So I decided to gather all of my thoughts. I obviously had a lot of thoughts into a video and to share it. And I really hope that other people, if they have like a lot of people are like me, have a lot of time right now, and maybe we can all share our thoughts together about where we can go from here and to really make sure that all this craziness we can learn some lessons from it. So I would like to see some other videos from people about some ideas that they have, especially people that have some insider knowledge, like nurses or paramedics or drivers or grocers, just anybody really. I'm sure we all have some thoughts, and I think this would be a really good time to get them out there and to hear from a lot of different voices. Okay, so right now is pretty bad. Millions of people might be dying soon, and more people are going to go bankrupt. But there could be a silver lining here because this could be like a system's feedback of trying to reach equilibrium, whereas the earth is the system and humanity is the virus. And not to say that this is going to wipe out humanity, but it could be a warning shot, and we should probably listen to it. Now, it's a common narrative that you need to hit rock bottom before you change things, but why do we need to hit rock bottom? Because things could get a lot worse from here. And really, how much pain do we need to go through before we have the collective will to change our habits? There have been 5 mass extinctions since life on Earth began, and we are flirting with the 6th one. So bear with me, but I feel like it's important to talk about some of the bad stuff that's happening all the way at the top of our structures and our institutions, and then we get to talk about how to better ourselves and strengthen our relationships, and how that type of bottom up processing, fixing the bottom and working it all the way up to the top, can save the world. So a little bit about me: I am not dedicated to the philosophy of fate because I don't like the idea of not being in control of my own life. But I do believe in an interplay of fate and free will. Divine coincidences happen all the time, which bring us to a decision point, and that decision sets us on a new track, new trajectory towards our next decision point. COVID-19 could be a divine coincidence that places us in a position to make compassionate choices to set a new positive trajectory for mankind. Our uh, our current trajectory our current path is paved with continual growth and finite resources, which is not sustainable unless our energy is renewable. Some quick climate change facts. The US is 5% of the world's population, yet we use 25% of its resources. 95% of the ocean's biomass is gone. We've killed 95% of ocean life. It is the rate at which the climate is changing that is causing weather abnormalities like Australia, like the Amazon rainforest, like our past few hurricane seasons in the US. And yeah, it might be expensive to transition to renewable energies, but it's going to be more expensive to try to reconstruct the damage that these weather anomalies are causing. So let's be a little bit proactive with things like the Green New Deal, which will create a lot of jobs. And yeah, it will be expensive and will raise our tax dollars, but like, I guess we won't have to pay taxes if we all die from the weather. But not only is our lifestyle destroying our world, it's destroying our minds. Our culture is not compatible with our biology anymore. It is too fast. We can't keep up with the rate that society is moving. Our dogs really haven't evolved with how fast that we're moving, which is good for my business, but it's bad for dogs. We are currently experiencing what's called a global cooling, which is fast, impersonal, cold interactions with humans because our goals are motivated by economic growth rather than collective thriving. This ice age of the heart has created individualistic culture, which is more concerned about competition than cooperation, and meaning we care about ourselves more than we care about the tribe. The product of individualistic culture was a grand old GDP, but it's really also produced an epidemic of mental health issues like depression and anxiety on scales that we've never seen before. The good news is we have a very large capacity for altruism. We have that capability like no other species on the planet. And it's primarily developed through our offspring being non-autonomous for so long. It takes a long time to rear them, therefore we need to be really cooperative and empathetic with each other if we want our offspring to survive. So that worked out. Good job, useless babies. However, we also have the greatest capacity for cruelty. We need to understand what we're capable of so that we can move past it. We are not bystanders of our fate. We are not dinosaurs watching an asteroid go by like, we can see what's coming, we can change it. So we need to address what's wrong with what we have in our society right now, and then we know how to fix it, and I'll describe it later on. Just hang in there with me. It's going to take a while. So we're going to talk about the macro problems with society and how they influence us all the way down into our micro problems that lie in the neural pathways in our brain. Society's number one problem is wealth inequality. We could talk about some stats like the bottom 80% only own 7% of the wealth. White families have 10 times the wealth as a black family or a Latino family. Comparatively, women own 32 cents to the dollar of a man in wealth, not in income. In income, it's 79 cents. But minority women only own pennies of wealth compared to white men. It's pretty bad. It's pretty unequal. So you can't really say that we have equal opportunity when there's that large of disparities. So as much as we want to believe in the American dream, like my man George Carlin said, you have to be asleep to believe it. So how do these inequalities exist? Because wealthy people came together and they're like, hey, don't let other people have this wealth. We're going to get more of it. And they established systems to hoard that wealth and to keep that power among themselves. They established an establishment. I wish it was something cool like the Illuminati, but it's not. It's just a collective ideology of rich people want to get more status and just have more wealth and more power, and that's just what they do, and that's just a collective thing they don't need to go to a dark meeting room to talk about. They just all know that. How they retain this power is divide and conquer and bread and circus, but they basically, for divide and conquer, they've just weaponized xenophobia of fear of the unknown. So they've taught us, hey, those people in your out group, that's the people to be scared of. Those are the ones creating the problems. Not us, not yourself, it's them. As for bread and circus, 90% of the media is owned by 6 corporations. That's kind of scary, because they all have basically the same exact narrative that they put out to the world. That is, hey, look at all these other things to distract you. Don't look at the people at the top. Don't look at us dropping bombs on 7 other countries. Don't look at poor people starving in our streets. Instead, look at this. Look at the Kardashians. That's always the go-to example of dumb media, but I mean, it's a good example. They also control our politics. They buy politicians during their election campaigns because it's a lot of money to run a campaign, or successful campaign. So they have corporations and billionaires donate to them. And it's not just because they, yeah, I believe in you. It's, hey, here's some money. When you get in, you're going to pass these bills that I write, or rather that Alec writes. We literally have corporations writing our bills to govern us. That's going to make the establishment more money. That's why we have such absurd policies and taxation. For example, universal healthcare. Guess what? Australia, Belgium, Bahrain, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Iceland, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Japan, Kuwait, Mexico, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, Russia, Singapore, South Korea, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, United Kingdom, and many more countries, including all the countries in South America besides 2, have universal healthcare. But we can't. We're supposed to be the richest country in the history of histories, yet we can't afford universal healthcare to take care of our citizens. Health insurance and pharmaceutical companies would lose billions of dollars in profit every year if we went to universal healthcare. And we're about to have a lot of people laid off from work from jobs that provide them health insurance during a pandemic. Do we see what's wrong with this picture now? Our politicians do not represent us. If they say the exact right things and have the exact right policies, but they take money from big donors, they do not have our best interest in mind. They have their interest in mind. The economy could be doing great and it could help some people, but it mainly helps them. It doesn't help the average American. It is not reflective of what's happening to us. GDP is entirely disassociated from our social, mental, and environmental health. The emphasis on GDP has created individualistic culture, and it is literally killing us. 64% of Americans are overweight or obese, and heart disease is rampant. The speed at which our food is prepared and consumed is reflective of our culture. It's impersonal and too fast. Individualistic culture also makes us incapable of delayed gratification, which disorients our locus of control, meaning we don't feel in control of ourselves anymore because we're literally addicts. We need gratification right away. We're in an age of distraction where our attention is constantly being broken from the present. We are numbed out on drugs and screens. This is hedonism. This is the pursuit of fleeting pleasure. What we need is eudaimonia, which is finding happiness and meaning. But if we're going to live a meaningful life, that means that everything we do is meaningful, which is a lot of weight to bear. However, loneliness is also heavy, and it's another product of an individualistic culture. Social isolation is literally worse for your health than smoking, and it is the worst punishment you can receive in prison. Not only is it an underlying denominator to most all mental health issues, it also causes sleep disturbances, deterioration of memory, and just a lot of bad stuff. It's not good to be lonely. So why do we keep living with this culture? It's because social norms influence our behavior more than anything else. Social rejection is actually processed in the same areas of the brain as physical pain, because being rejected from your tribe used to mean death. So our ancestors took that ish seriously. Culture is a complex system for survival, just like our brains. But just like our brains is malleable. We can change it if we try. As amazing as our brains are, they're actually not that accurate. We actually hallucinate a lot of things that our perception misses to fill in the gaps of our memories, our present, and the future that we're trying to predict. It's an unreliable system, but it's efficient, and it's just good enough to survive and pass on our genes. However, we have the knowledge and the capability now to make our brains even better. We can do it. First, we got to be aware of our ego defense mechanisms. They're little booby traps in our head that are meant to protect us, but they actually provide us a lot of false narratives. We are constantly categorizing things in order to understand the world around us. Confirmation bias is the worst. It's where we only note things that confirm our already established narrative. In conjunction with confirmation bias, there's the backfire effect, which is when we reach a state of dissonance by a presented form of information that goes against our established narratives, and instead of critically evaluating where our narrative came from, we lean harder into it. Another unfortunate booby trap that we have up here is our incessant need to create in-groups and out-groups. It's a survival mechanism to find a sense of belonging. So we literally have biology in our brain telling us to find a sense of belonging, which is why an individualistic culture doesn't work so well when our culture is telling us to, hey, you do you, don't worry about anybody else. And our brains are like, but I love everybody else. This is reinforced by the illusion of asymmetric insight, which basically means you think that you know your outgroup better than they know themselves. All of these biases form a worldview in your brain, and it literally creates neural pathways in your brain so that it's easier to think quickly about, oh, that's the way this works. These neural pathways create consistent modes of thinking, which create habits, which create consistent behavior, which doesn't require conscious thought anymore. Sorry, I like talking about the brain because I find it fascinating, and I like when people tell me about things that they're passionate about as well. But all these injustices and all this brain stuff might seem a little bit overwhelming, and it might seem like There's nothing that we can really do, but there is, because of bottom-up processing. We change ourselves, we change our relationships, we change the world. If everyone believed that things were beyond their control, then nothing would change. So, how do we change ourselves? How do we change our brain? Chances are you know what you need to do to change your life. Um, Shia LaBeouf knows what you need to do to change your life. Do it! Make your dreams come true! Where I'd like to start, though, is one of my favorite sayings, that is, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's a fun play on words, but it's literally, it's a real thing. It's proven by quantum physics, where when you observe particles, they behave differently. If you talk positively to a plant, it grows faster. If you truly believe that the world around you is a good place, confirmation bias would be like, yep, that was a good thing that happened over there. The world's a good place. Yep, that was a good thing. Cool. The world's still a cool place. The power of belief is powerful. It's more powerful than the establishment. So with that positive mindset, picture the highest version of you, the best version of you. You know, when you're really on, picture that, visualize it, meditate on it. Think about what interactions you'd have with people throughout the day. Imagine your life if you were that you all the time. We have a tendency to code switch depending on which social group that we're surrounded by, but if we plant a deep seed in our head that this is the me that I am, then we cancel out a lot of actual physiological stress that we create from trying to conform to a group around us. So believe that you are that you. It's not really fake it till you make it, because you already are who you want to be. So once you start really picturing that and believing that, confirmation bias will be like, yep, look at all this stuff happening. I'm me. I'm pretty cool. I'm liking myself right now. I'm feeling myself. So now that we have the right mindset up in here, we're gonna move on to habits. This is called keystone habits, small little baby steps. So don't, if you have a habit of snoozing all the time, don't try to create a new hour-long morning routine. Instead, wake up 5 minutes earlier and do a 5-minute meditation where you're like, I already am who I want to be, for 5 minutes, and then go to 10 minutes, and then maybe 15 minutes with a 5-minute yoga exercise with a stretch, and then maybe 30 minutes with some journaling added in there. Just some, whatever you want to do. Like I said, you already know what you need to do to improve your life. Another way to break habits is to recognize the habit loop, which is cue, routine, and reward. So say you're bored, that's your cue. You check your phone, that's your routine. And you're not bored anymore, that's your reward. Bored, phone, entertainment. Bored, phone, entertainment. So what you do is you remove that routine, you replace it with a different routine. In this case, what you could do is boredom, and look around, check out what's around you. Do a little visual meditation or a presence check of checking out everything around you, and you won't be bored anymore. Quite honestly, you'll look around and notice something that's kind of cool. There's things happening all the time, all around you. And if nothing's happening, get up and go somewhere else. You can also think of something that you're grateful for. There's so much like happiness revolves around being happy about what you already have. So take some time, if you're bored, instead of checking your phone, think like, oh yeah, my parents are pretty cool, huh? Yeah, I'm grateful for that. Sweet. Alright, I'm not bored anymore. So how do I stay disciplined with all these changes in habits? Lock-in theory. Lock-in theory is basically a contract that you make with yourself, because you are literally a different person from when you were motivated and, yeah, I am going to get up early, I'm going to do that. And then when the alarm goes off, I'm a different person that wants to stay in bed. So what you do, like you would with a business partner that's like, I'm going to hold you to this, let's make a contract. Make a contract with yourself. Write out the things that you want to do, that you want to improve on. And I mean, you can sign it if you want, but it also helps to have a co-sign. Have somebody that you trust and care about and that cares about you check into what you're doing and have them help you be accountable for your contract. Make a 2-day rule clause in it though. 2-day rule just means that you can't deviate from that plan 2 days in a row. So say you're trying to get in shape, you can't skip the gym 2 days in a row. You can't eat unhealthy 2 days in a row. If you're trying to build up your relations, you can't be socially isolated for 2 days in a row, which is kind of hard right now, but you can make some phone calls. Willpower, because it is a finite source, it literally depletes energy in our brains, glutamate, whenever we go against our our neural pathways that are already set up. You have to be aware of how much willpower that you're expelling when you do decide to go to the gym, because after the gym, you might go gorge on some chocolate cake, especially if you have some chocolate cake. I wish I had some chocolate cake. One more thing about changing ourselves is being aware of our emotional reactions through a method called first dart, second dart. So the first dart is the situation that hits you. The second dart is your emotional reaction to it, which most of the time, if we have a visceral reaction to something, it doesn't serve us and doesn't get us to an actual solution. There's 4 stages to overcoming that second dart, which in the first stage, we're in a state of unconscious incompetence, meaning I am not thinking about my emotional reaction. I'm not controlling it at all. I'm unconscious about it and I'm incompetent about it. Next is conscious incompetence, which is basically just noting your emotion. You don't have to change it. You just have to notice it. You have to think to yourself, I'm mad. That's it. That's conscious incompetence. Next is conscious competence. Yeah, this is getting confusing for me too. Don't worry. Which is where we note our emotion and we change it. And then lastly, it's after we get that stage down, the last step is unconscious competence, where we're not phased, we're infeasible. You can't touch me. And that's a cool way to live. It's hard. Like all of these things, by the way, I am working on myself. I'm not a guru by any means. That's weird. It sounds super pretentious, but I think that we all can benefit from this type of stuff. So I wanted to share this. Next, I'm going to share how to make our relationships better. One quick and easy thing to do with your significant other to keep the relationship alive is to do challenging things together. A lot of us get complacent in relationships, and an easy way to light the fire is to just challenge each other, because of a thing called misattribution of arousal, which is basically we cast the feelings of accomplishment onto our partner if they were there with us when we made that accomplishment. So it's a funny little trick, but I mean, it works. Since I've already talked about individualistic culture, I'll talk about how we can start changing that and breaking that wheel in our personal relationships, and that's just to be patient with each other. Impatience comes from rhythms that are not in harmony. So if somebody's trying to move at 100 miles an hour and you're not, they're going to become impatient with you. So patience is really just about understanding that other people operate in different speeds, and we need to respect that. Part of respecting other people's rhythms is understanding that they are also just another complex human being, and if we don't respect and understand other people, we tend to be more manipulative and more unkind. So instead, try to be genuinely interested in everybody that you meet. It might be draining at first, especially if you're an introvert, but it's like willpower. It's a muscle. You'll build it up as you go. Everyone has something important and unique to say, so take the time to listen. And when you do listen, be entirely engaged in what they're saying. Don't be thinking of what you'll add on to that story. Listen with complete intention to understand them and their perspective. When it is your turn to speak, ask questions to clarify their opinion if you have any reservations or anything that's unclear. And this is really how we should address an argument, which is kind of the core of building relationships. Is if we have a disagreement with somebody, we need to listen to them and completely understand what they're saying and be able to restate their opinions fully so that there's no confusion. And then it's our turn to talk. In therapy, they often use an object to pass around of, my turn to talk, okay, your turn to talk. When there is an argument, the goal needs to be to come to a consensus, to come to an agreement and to find commonality so that you can move on from there. Finding commonality and then striving towards a collective goal is actually how we defeat the in-group, out-group bias. If we are challenged with the goal that we have to work with somebody that's outside of our group, they become our group. So we need to come together for the common good. And there's a lot of good to be done because there's a lot of things that could go wrong very soon. So we have our work cut out for us. But the reason that we are here on this planet is for each other. It's kind of a beautiful thing. We find purpose in helping each other. Serving others is mutually beneficial because it is actually really good for our health to help other people, even if it's taxing, even if it's the side of altruism that's doing a good deed at a detriment to yourself, even if that detriment is pretty bad, you can address that detriment, you can address those stresses that you already had with a healthier body and mind. Altruistic people are healthier, happier, more successful, have a larger social group, and they live longer. Like, it is good for your health to be good to other people. Being altruistic and empathetic isn't all sunshine and rainbows and puppies, though. It has a lot more to do with experiencing other people's pain and taking that in. But suffering is part of the human condition, and we need to be able to understand it so that we have the wisdom to bypass it, to transcend it. If we were in a constant state of joy, we would be irritating maniacs. So welcome sadness just as you would welcome a disagreement. It's part of our human experience, and it's how we learn. Sorrow is part of joy. They are intertwined. You cannot have happiness if you do not have sadness. Those feelings are connected. Everything is connected. All of us are connected. We're actually one big universal unconsciousness, all going through this life together. Life exists on imperceivable planes, like waves of vibration and energy, and our skin is like antenna. It receives and it transmits energy to each other. It's kind of creepy, but it's super cool. I'm pretty excited about it. We radiate what we are, and we take in what's around us through emotions, smiles, eye contact, and being fully present with each other. So what you put out into the world is what you get back. So we're all in this together, guys. And the path that we're on is not very good. We need to recognize these divine coincidences, and we need to change our trajectory really quick. And we shouldn't have to hit rock bottom before we decide to do that collectively. Because rock bottom, there's probably not going to be a path out of that. We need to be proactive, and we need to be good to ourselves, and we need to be good to those around us so that we can change the world. So improve ourselves, improve our relationships, then we can come together for the common good, which is my definition of patriotism. And then we can challenge institutions and governments and say, hey, you work for us. We're in this together now. You can't separate us anymore. We're on to you guys. And then hopefully we can not die from the weather or a World War III or a pandemic or aliens. Actually, if I had my choice, it would be that one. I'd rather die from aliens. So thank you for humoring me and watching all of that. You didn't have to. But I felt like I've learned some things that have been useful to me, and I wanted to share them. And I think it's an important time to evaluate these types of things. If these are the types of topics that you're interested in and you have some spare time to read, I pulled a lot of information from these books. The Well-Tuned Brain, it's kind of a thick and dense one, but it did have some good information in there. The Power of Habit, that's a very actually entertaining one. You're Now Less Dumb is actually really entertaining for a non-fiction book. It's hilarious. It had me laughing out loud quite a few times. And I think the most important one is The Power of Kindness. I think we could all use this book right now. It was awfully inspiring to me. But more inspiring have been the heroes during this pandemic, which are everybody from the grocery store clerks to the paramedics to the truck drivers. There's a lot of people showing the best of humanity right now, and we need to support them and take their follow their lead, basically. So find a way to help any way you can. I think it starts with helping ourselves, as selfish as that sounds like, but When we get our minds right, we can help a lot of other people. So hang in there, guys. We can get through this together.